Alrighty, so now we're going to jump now into the third segment, and this is your chance to share some wisdom with the listeners and the viewers. It's a lesson from Todd. So, mate, what would you like to teach us about today?
I guess, if anything, talking about rubs in general, or balancing flavors. Why you would use a rub, why you would use in conjunction with other things. And again, sort of talking about, to me, from my theory, is that a rub's really part of the story, and it's there to enhance the flavor of meat. I've sort of steered away from doing rubs that, have, I guess, a be all and end all. So, there's obviously quite a few on the market now that might have vinegar in it and things like that. Which is great, if you want to make it easy. And I sort of sit there and think, well, to me, if I was making pulled pork, which to me is quite a sweet meat. So I guess the rub that I made for pulled pork was the Memphis Magic Dust, which doesn't have any sugar. It's salty, it's spicy, and then obviously the sweetness of the meat comes out, and then once you pulled it, you would put, naturally put a sauce in it, and that sauce would contain sugar and it contained vinegar and those sorts of things. So it becomes a balancing act in terms of, rather than trying to find a product that does everything for you, use it in conjunction with other things. So, I don't know, I'm assuming that everyone puts sauce in pulled pork. That's, pretty standard. Do you, Ben? Do you sauce your pulled pork once you've pulled it?
I usually put the sauce on, what I'm having the pork on, if that makes sense. So I don't blend the sauce through the pulled pork itself. I'll put the pork on the burger and then sauce the burger. Just because I prefer it for each person to be able to have whatever or how much sauce they want, that sort of thing.
But it's still reflecting on it. It's quite similar in terms of being able to say, okay, well, I don't think anyone's going to have a bowl of pulled pork. So generally it's going to go on something. It's going to go on a taco. It's going to go on a burger, and there's going to be other things attached to that. So the rub is really there to enhance the meat, which is then going to balance against other things as well. I'd sort of encourage people to have a crack at making a product for yourself if you want to. So I know it seems contradictory in terms of someone who actually makes rubs, but my business was born from me, not wanting to sort of cater anymore, but still loving the flavors. So I just started blending my own rubs, and then people sort of gave me feedback that they quite liked them, and then away we went. So I think no one knows your own palate better than yourself. And I think, you can use it in a couple of different ways. You can obviously use, like, people grab my product all the time and they sort of, throw them together. SPG and Dark Side on brisket seems to be the going thing with a lot of catering guys as well. And I've been fortunate enough to, supply commercial quantities to restaurants and barbecue catering guys now. And that's just what works for them. So, which works great in terms of feedback, because when another guy comes along, I'll sort of tell them, what other people are doing, and that'll work well. So I think, you can obviously either combine them or, have a crack at making your own product. There's really no, not to sell though, because, there's enough competition in the market, but
of course. Yeah.
certainly for your own cooking, like, as I say, like, people combining my products, well, there's nothing wrong with, say, I like a little bit more heat, or I like a little bit more, so, grab one of the products and add some chili to it, or even just, start from scratch, just trial and error. And it's a lot of fun. It's mad science, and understanding what works for you, but also what works for, the meat you're cooking with is a lot of fun. And write everything down, though. If I could give you one piece of advice, if you're making anything, so if you're doing a recipe, if you're making a rub, if you're making a sauce, write it down every time, because you'll end up like Tenacious D, who wrote the greatest song in the world and couldn't remember it. So it's and you'll end up with a tribute recipe. So and I've got an old book that has more crosses through it than actual recipes, where I've tried different things and just gone, what is going on here? You have a bit of a vision on what you want it to look like, and you try it, and I don't think I'll get anyone else to try that one. So it's and just the line goes through it, but of course eventually you nail it, and that's the one. And from that point there, I've got a small group of really close friends around me who I give product to, and they sort of give me their very honest feedback because they're real friends on what they like and what they don't like about it. And a lot of the time, it's actually pretty similar feedback. So you can sort of take that on and say, okay, well, that's clearly. I used to make all of my rubs were hot because I love spice.
Same.
And and the rub's an interesting one because I made it for lamb because I noticed that most of the lamb rubs in the market were sort of herb driven, and I'm a spice guy, I'm not a herb guy, so I wanted to make something that had a real real sort of spicy sort of as in spiced flavor, not heat. But of course, me being me, I put a heap of chili in it, and the feedback I got was sitting there going, "Oh, this tastes great, but what's that chili about?" So and you have to be sort of willing to take on that honest feedback and say, what, like this might be great in my own home, but obviously I'm trying to commercially create a business here and sell some products. So so you have to sort of be able to take that feedback on. So again, I was quite firm when I first started in terms of saying I'm just going to do what I want to do. Hopefully people like it. But, as you sort of go on longer, I think the last two products I've made and the one we're developing right now contain no chili. Dark Side's got a little tiny hint, so you'd only really taste it if you put it on a steak. So I think, because obviously you're talking about surface area of product. If you did shorties or brisket, you wouldn't really get that heat kick. And obviously it's cooked out for a long time as well. So, if you're grilling a steak or something like that, you would get that little hint of heat. So that's my advice. Write it down, and just have a crack at playing around. So try and do things differently, so there's a whole world of cooking over fire that goes so far beyond a brisket or a pulled pork or, grab some cuts and have a crack with it, grab a butterfly lamb leg and cook it like a big steak. And it's, it's far and away my favorite thing to do. And it gives a lot of theatre when people come around and you just end up just having a mad meat fest with, Danish feta and crusty bread and make a salsa verde and things like that. So,
so good.
Share stuff, share it with friends. So,
yeah, beautiful. Yeah. I certainly feel what you're saying with the write everything down. I've got a little Ziploc bag of a chicken rub that I put together years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, more than that, 5 years ago. It was in the other house, and I found what I wrote down, but I didn't write down the quantities, so I know what's in it, but I don't know the ratios, and so I'm just waiting until I meet like a food scientist, and I can send what's left in the bag to them, and they can tell me what I did. But yeah.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, so when it comes to getting in and having a crack, what are the basic principles of making a rub that people need to be aware of?
Oh, well, first of all, you're seasoning. You're actually seasoning meat. So, my advice would be to always start with salt and pepper and get that balance right. And then start to build around, what you actually want to create. So, because you're not, potentially creating a commercial product, you sit there and go, look, I want to make, Greek food. I want to get a gyros. I want to get something spinning, and just jump on and do a bit of research in terms of, what that flavor profile is like. And, so I'm obviously quite conscious that, we don't steal recipes, but we're certainly influenced in terms of, you might look at it and go, I look at, say like, Turkish or Greek or whatever. And, the rub we're working on at the moment is going to be, hopefully, spun on chickens everywhere and lamb everywhere. And, so we really sort of get that sort of Southern European vibe. So, there's a lot of research in terms of reading, in terms of, looking online at what flavor profile is involved there. And then it's just playing around, and always like to try and, get something a bit hidden that people won't, they might taste it and go, oh, that's, I'm not sure what's happening there, but, they like it, but they're not sure how. And that sort of, helps protect your product as well. So, but I think, understand that you're actually seasoning meat. It's not creating a whole, you're not going to grab the thing and have spoonfuls of it. So,
And just to hark back to another thing that you said during your lesson there, you mentioned that there was like spices and herbs, and I think because we've sort of grown up with KFC, we just hear herbs and spices together in a phrase, and we just assume that they're all part of the same family. Can you give us an idea of the distinction between what is a spice and what is a herb?
Oh, well, obviously, herbs are leaves essentially. So, they grow on. So it's, obviously the stuff that you'll see, in your Italian blend from Master Foods or whatever it is. So, obviously, oregano, rosemary, so on. And then obviously spices, you're starting to get into ground products. So it might be, sort of seeds or, so on. It's obviously, smoke dried ground. So we're talking like coriander and cumin and paprika and all those sorts of fun stuff. So that's, I guess, the easiest distinction. I actually don't use a huge amount of herbs, and because I'm just not a herb guy. But it's interesting with this, as I say, this one we're developing now. Obviously, given the flavour profiles of that Southern European, it can be quite herby, and I'm having a lot of fun trying to find a balance that I think will work, but also not being a fan of herbs. So it's So that's, I think, you get a lot more punch from using spices, and but what comes with that is having to really focus on how you balance that, because you can just go. It doesn't take much for things to go too far the other way, particularly when you're using really strong spices like cumin and so on, and cayenne and so on. It's very easy to go, wow, we've made something really quite funky there that just doesn't work at all. So go easy. So it's easy. It's easy to add to a blend. It's pretty hard to take away. So
yeah. I hear that. Yeah.